Greetings, brethren and sisters of the house of Eris. Hail, Eris. Congratulations to each and every last one of you for making it to Lecture 5. It's going to be an interesting segment from Lecture 5 throughout Lecture 8. Because specifically, Circuit 1, Circuit 2, Circuit 3, and Circuit 4 of the 8 circuits of consciousness, according to Leary's model of the 8 circuits of consciousness, are related to survival of organisms on Earth. Of the 8 circuits of consciousness, they are in 2 categories. The first 4 and the second 4, 1 through 4 and 5 through 8, and they're not the same. The first 4 circuits are, again, related to survival of organisms on Earth, while the other 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are in use for future evolution of humans. So there's 2 classes that this model by Leary breaks down into. All right. We are here again on Lecture 5, so we've transitioned from the sphere, if you will, of survival of organisms on Earth to circuits that are in use for future evolution of humans. And I thought, what better place to start off the second segment than the lake here in Tallahassee, my hometown, Florida. I've known this lake since I was a toddler, and it hasn't changed. A lot of architectures, but it hasn't. And so this is an outdoor setting where this one's delivered or presented, this lecture. For you Discordians, for you who are believers in Discordianism, the modern religion, holding the belief that discord is just as an important part of reality as is order. Really easy. It's just as easy as accepting that Jesus Christ has been sacrificed for our salvation, and therefore, or thereby rather, inheriting eternal life. Very simple. No physical labor in a philosophical context here, or organic context, is necessary to accept or believe, or at least get one into the circle of favor, if you will, right? And of course, to maintain that, of course, might take some work. It depends. We're all going our own respective walks and ways in life. But just to begin the conscious activation, we've no need to perform any labor. And so the 5th lecture is about the 5th circuit of consciousness. The first one of the 4 that deal or are in use for human evolution, future evolution of humans, right? And this 5th circuit is the Neurosomatic Circuit. It is of the right brain higher circuits, first in most humans, right? So there's a right brain, there's a left brain. Each brain, or each side of the brain, has a higher circuits and a lower circuits, a platform, if you will, domain, as well. The right brain then, the left brain then has its higher circuits and its lower circuits. So we are in the 5th circuit of consciousness, relating the right brain higher circuits, where the neurosomatic circuit is first in most humans. If we look at, in other words, the neurosomatic circuit, and just imagine a circle being around it on like a whiteboard or something, just to represent it being one entity, right? A single entity, the circuit alone. And that circle, it symbolizes or represents dimensions. And there's an arrow that points or intersects that circle, the line, I'm not sure, because, well, there's no beginning or ending to a circle, right, in terms of points. And a line is the same way. It goes to infinity, right? But if there is a line that is intersecting the circle, drawn from the neurosomatic circuit, on or beyond the barrier or the perimeter of the circle, at the other end of the line, we'd find outer space. And that outer space is the Euclidean space. This circuit first appeared around 2000 BC among leisure class civilizations. What are leisure class civilizations? I guess outside of our opinion. To me, a leisure class civilization, when I think about Humanities 1, Humanities 2 from college, which I took consecutive semesters, throughout the 15th and 16th centuries, I think, and each of them going all the way into the 20th century, into the golden age, into the 1970s and 80s, from the 15th or 16th century. We're looking at arts and history and literature, theology, esotericism, or philosophy, the sciences, absolutely, right? And we're engulfed in the cultural knowledge, as I was. The hedonists. It reminds me, this term, leisure class civilizations, of hedonists, for example. Very leisure class to the provocative, explicit, or nude point, right? But again, I can also think of Jaffa in Africa. When I hear or look and read, see the term leisure class civilizations, I really actually think Jaffa more so, very well more so than any cultural tribe or segment or class of hedonists, right? Because that's so cultural. Jaffa is more of a civilization example. Jaffa in Africa does not have its own governing system, nor is it governed by any governing system in Africa. Jaffa is governed by France. At the time Napoleon was campaigning in France, he and an entourage visited Jaffa. And instead of what we might want to expect or assume or presume to be some trip or journey to sort of mark over Jaffa or just kind of pass over Jaffa purposefully or intentionally, he showed rather compassionate feelings toward Jaffa. He was very solemn and sovereign when he visited Jaffa. And the word is, the supposition, if you will, is that it's because he was in the middle of a campaign, and it would have hurt his campaign if he would have been belligerent or blatant in any type of unethical way towards Jaffa or the citizens of Jaffa. So Jaffa is one example of a leisure class civilization. It's under French government, but it is in Africa. And it's because it's so underdeveloping as a society that it can't afford, it can't afford to operate independently, if you will. So the neurosomatic circuit first appeared around 2000 BC among leisure class civilizations, right? It's associated with hedonism and eroticism, right? It stimulated the circuit by cannabis and what's called tantric yoga. If you're into yoga, I'm a certified yogi as well as a martial arts practitioner. Or experiencing the sensation of free fall can stimulate it. And we're talking about the sensation of free fall at the right time. So more or less deliberately can stimulate the neurosomatic circuit. What do we want to do in this circuit? What happens? Well, a couple of things let's do. Let's rely on spiritual ecstasy to understand it clearer, better, as discordant. As we're also learning in this lecture series how the 8 circuits of consciousness, how Leary's model of the 8 circuits of consciousness relate or relevant or pertinent to the structure of our fraternity, right? Let's measure individual relations as well. Let's use our imagination and let's use consciousness of the reality of nature, right? So let's get really in touch here because we've been through the first 4 circuits that relate to survival of organisms on Earth, and that's nature. And we're now in the final 4 of the 8 circuits that are not dealing with survival of organisms on Earth, rather are in use for future evolution of humans. So let us use what we've learned in terms of consciousness or in referencing consciousness from the first 4 circuits or lectures here in the 5th circuit so that we can understand it better, right? Consciousness of the reality of nature, okay? Reality of consciousness, sure. Evolution of consciousness. We've got to learn how to conceive that, accept it, contemplate, consider it, right? Reasons why, first, of some reasons I'll provide or share, self-actualization, because the 5th circuit is inactive, right? It's inactive. It's about future evolution, not present evolution or past evolution. It's about future evolution. It is in use for future evolution of humans. So in our real time, it is inactive, but we are not inactive. We are working to, so to speak, generate it, empower it, to activate it, if you will, among the other 7 circuits that exist versus just this one 5th circuit, which would just be a circuit, not a 5th one, exists, and it is the only circuit of consciousness, right? It's got some psychology into it. We're going a little bit into transpersonal psychology, perhaps. Another reason, blind obedience. If you're familiar with military terminology or jargon, we know blind obedience, right? It means when you are able to follow an order without questioning, without pausing or without freezing, right? Without wondering, without delay, to verbatim follow an order. It's called or referred to in military blind obedience. That's another reason. Another reason is auto-hypnosis. When we tend as humans in our people to just become hypnotized ourselves. Daydreaming leads to auto-hypnosis, right? We automatically become hypnotized when we are focused in a natural sense on an object or a place or a thing or person even, or thoughts it could be, for a very long time, right? The auto hypnosis. Um, this auto hypnosis thing is the submissive nature of the universe. When we become very sovereign and we actually become, watch, this is another word of mine, it's a favorite, and it's because I don't hear it very much, tranquil. We become tranquil. That's a nice word. Um, it's when we become tranquil, we're in that submissive nature of the universe, which we could find in metaphysics. We wanted to look more into it or delve deeper into it, into metaphysics. My PhD is in metaphysics, um, and metaphysics is one of the four main branches of philosophy, anyway. So in college or in a university, if you're studying for the PhD, you're taking some philosophy. Chances are you might. It's possible, anywho, for better or for worse, that you'd be taking a metaphysics course. Um, so we can get to metaphysics in more than one way, right? So to speak. Um, I mean, you don't have to be studying metaphysics. If you were wanting to be you want a PhD in law, you'd still be ending up taking metaphysics because the P in PhD stands for philosophy. You'll be taking philosophy classes if you're ever studying for the PhD, no matter in what field. And it's possible thereby to take some metaphysics, right? A metaphysics course. It's one of the four main branches of philosophy. And again, philosophy is what the letter P stands for in PhD. So another reason is Bloom's taxonomy. If you know what Bloom's taxonomy is, it's a hierarchical kind of model. And I'll give us the short version. It's low portion, the base of it, because this model is a pyramid, the image of a pyramid, 3 points, triangle shape. At the very base of it, the larger portion, there's the low order thinking. Hearing them out, listening to another's opinion or version of something, right? Hearing somebody out and listening, active listening, comprehensive listening, or critical listening, or empathic listening, appreciative listening, whatever type of active listening skill you're finding most useful or essential or efficient to practice. When you are in the listening role, not the speaking role, then it goes up into the next portion of the model, and it is the middle order thinking. And that order thinking is about looking at what you're hearing, thinking about it while you're listening, and as if the shoes were on the other foot. So you're thinking outside the box. You're stepping outside of the comfort zone. And then the high order thinking that goes all the way to the top of the pyramid, Bloom's taxonomy, is when we hear and we listen, and we are also now very interested and determined, frankly, to come up with a resolution, right? To come up with another idea that will complement what it is that we are dealing with or listening to, right? There's more than just looking at it from outside the box or just listening for support or whatever. But there's the need to engage in some action as a result of what we're hearing. A need to become proactive. And that's a short version of Bloom's taxonomy. It consists of low order thinking, middle order thinking, and high order thinking. And so that's one of the other reasons to get to the low, middle, and high order thinking. Why we know of the Fifth Circuit it is of the right brain higher circuits, right? Another reason is biological essentialism. And this is to build here or to reveal to us, to sort of subject us to this structure of this circuit, right? Psychological. I don't know how many psychology majors are here or experts. I have a psychology criminal justice certification, also research methodology in the psychology field from the University of Queensland in Australia, international. It's not my college major, but in a perfect world, psychology would have been. Everybody in college is trying to go into psychology. I was going to be the same case. I tried to, I dared to be different. I went broadcasted journalism, but I did go to a different institution altogether. I pursue psychology, so I got a couple of credentials. And if there are any psychology majors here, then it's something I would be very useful with, very handy with when we're looking into this particular circuit. And frankly, the other three, 6, 7, and 8, again, because of the 8 of Leary's model, the 8 circuits of consciousness, the first 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 circuits are related to survival of organisms on Earth, while the other 4 circuits, 5, 6, 7, and 8, are in use for future evolution of humans. So this entire model is broken up into 2 categories. And this particular one, since we are now on the 5th circuit, we are officially finished with the philosophy, if you will, of survival of organisms on Earth. We are now, and we will be throughout the duration or the remainder of this series, dealing with circuits that are in use for future evolution of humans. And so, it allows one to see things in multidimensional space instead of the 4 dimensions of Euclidean space. In the 4th dimension, we know will gain us time. We went and visited this philosophically and Masonically in the last lecture, right? So it allows one to see things in multidimensional space, more than the 3rd dimension, right? More than the 3rd dimension. And instead, hear me good on this, instead of the 4 dimensions, right? So looking into multidimensional space, of course we could in the 3-dimensional space, as long as we're looking in the 4th dimension, which is time, within the 3 dimension. And that, of course, too, technically is multidimensional space. But we can get larger than just at the 4th dimension to get to some real serious multidimensional space. Some more serious multidimensional space, right? So is there to aid in the future exploration of outer space this circuit? It's a question, right? Is there to aid in the future exploration? We know this is dealing with, or is this in use for future evolution of humans, right? Thus, is there, to aid this circuit in future exploration of outer space? Does the Neurosomatic Circuit allow us, by providing aid in the future exploration, as it is in use for future evolution of humans? Is it to aid in future exploration as well of outer space? Because we can go through dimensions in the neurosomatic circuit to outer space, into Euclidean space. The question here is it to aid in future exploration, right? As much as it has to do with future evolution. Is it to aid in future exploration of outer space? Let's go a little bit more on into the reality of nature. Right? Let's find a gravitational pull here, metaphorically. While we are in these dimensions or dimensional spaces in philosophy, fellow Discordians and enlightened Masons. Logic, or locus of control, which is where one connects reason to events. It could be external or internal. It's in terms of the center of these things, or the cause of the events, which is the difference between external locus of control and internal locus of control. Civil inattention. When we're in public spaces like here, and I'm not doing any specific kinds of things that would just gesture to the community or society at large, to the effect of signifying my presence outside of normal things I have been trained to do and instructed on that are called civil inattention, because they aren't direct to anyone. They're more or less a manner or of a cultural knowledge to move in a certain appropriation that is a norm, that has a normal rate to it, so that those who aren't able to say I'm specifically or directly paying any attention to him or her can feel that I am still aware in an interpersonal intelligence of my environment, of my surroundings, right? Civil inattention. Kinesthetics is another, when we don't use words to talk. We'll look into nonverbal communication, but we will be looking a lot more concentratedly into it, because kinesthetics, not connect. Kinesthetics is this way of learning. It's a modality, and it involves, a person needs to involve or include rather a physical touch in order to understand clearer than they would if they did not have the opportunity to include a physical aspect, if you will, in the process of learning. It's one of the four modalities, right? Some people hear better, some people visually learn better, faster, more effective than the others, and then there's the kinesthetic. Some people do better by touching, right? If you're studying to be a cosmetologist or a barber, you're going to have to touch, or a plumber or electrician, right? You're going to have to touch. That's kinesthetic, right? Those are situations where it's mandatory that you do have, some tolerance for the kinesthetic modality. Even if it isn't your strongest, something else is, those are going to have to be combined or associated together. But then we go on into kinesics, which is, a stem, if you will, a branch, if you will, of nonverbal communication, where we are using our body and gestures to communicate. It's called kinesics. And so energy and inertia, all enclosed or encompassing the endocrine system, brings us well into the reality of nature versus the sublime natural sense, right? The development of leisure class civilizations is why I want to, equip ourselves, so to speak, with these physiologies, right, or physiological concepts. And there are four reasons I'll share. The first one is the pursuit of wealth, not just money, but also power, land, freedom, and possessions. When we talk about pursuit of wealth, another one is the possession of wealth or money, right? Property, therefore, is also there. And we're talking, i.e., uh, people, luxury and people. It's the way, some classes are. When we talk about leisure class civilizations, everybody's happy with each other. The next door neighbors are really great neighbors. They're not nuisances. They're not aggravations. Everything works very harmoniously, right? Employment in conspicuous consumption. Interesting concept. Employment in conspicuous consumption, where people use luxury, right? And it goes to hide their insecurities. Employment in conspicuous consumption, right? All these things to hide their insecurities. Yeah. And so the theory of the leisure class was published during the Gilded Age from 1870 to 1900. And, imagine what things were happening during the Gilded Age. There is a big chance that a lot of employment in conspicuous consumption was probably the case for many individuals, because the industry is growing, metal, steel, oil, and it's a time for change, social movements, fraternities, Greek letter fraternities, college fraternities, sororities. Those organizations start to rise, right? We get the concept from Napoleon Hill's research on successful people, such as Winston Churchill, or J.P. Morgan might be one of them, but definitely Andrew Carnegie. People like them who were found to network with one another based on their success. And we in Sigma Alpha Pi, which I was inducted in January 19th, 2021, as I returned to college at 40 years old in 2020, that term, success networking teams, is what we call SNTs, success networking teams, and it's based on Napoleon Hill's research on those individuals for those reasons. And so during the Gilded Age, I don't know if they really the name of it, that success networking teams, but people were networking who were all each successful, similar to those who first became parts of Brother Weishaupt's founding of the Covenant of Perfectibility, later on named Order of Illuminati, which we know was Bavarian Illuminati. Right? Each of them are already individually Illuminatis, or individuals believing that within them is the gift of illumination. Right? The pursuit of wealth. Talk about it, shall we? Under a more trustworthy government, this is not a problem. It is when the government is corrupt that issues tend to proceed. And that is unfortunate. And the reason why I think it's unfortunate is because issues and problems are not the same. In terms of just vocabulary, they are not synonymous. A problem in the field of sociology, okay, is personal, right? A headache, a migraine, nausea, those are problems. Those are issues. Hatred, crime, abuse, those are issues, right, in society. And so, under a moral, trustworthy government, this pursuit of wealth is not a problem. That is not implying that it is not an issue, but it's not a problem. So imagine if you've no disconnection among what's called morality or virtue, nor trustworthiness, a virtue there, right? Then pursuing wealth, the pursuits of wealth, is not a problem for you, right? You can feel, I imagine, all of those exciting consequences, if you will, or results of your or fruits of your labor in regard to the pursuit of wealth, right? So as long as you're rooted into morality and trustworthiness, you can pursue wealth and not have it be a problem. However, when the government is corrupt, that issues tend to proceed. So if you're pursuing wealth and you're of good morality and trustworthiness, and these are attributes that you support or you're in support of or strongly a believer in ethically, then your pursuit of wealth is not going to be a problem. But if you are in a government system that is corrupt, all the while this isn't a problem, the issues that are in the society at large start to proceed. So there is a threat at the border of your pursuit of wealth and your enjoyment, right, in what your pursuit just so happens to be about, right? So we can't control everything. Hedonism, discordianism, let's talk about them, each of them. Because number one first, is the movement taking place in a moral, trustworthy government? In other words, the pursuit of wealth, is it taking place? Are you pursuing wealth in a moral, trustworthy government, or are you pursuing these things morally and trustworthy in a corrupt government? Right? Questions. Another one, is our government today corrupt towards discordianism? Is it possible? Of course, we have opinions. I don't like it or we love it. But let's look at what discordianism has to say. It's the belief that chaos is just as an important part of reality as order and harmony is. Right? It can be discord, it can be concord, but it is just as important, one and the other, in reality. So, in a psychological frame, is our government today corrupt towards discordianism? Is there a hidden agenda to prohibit or prevent, actually, discordianism from gaining popularity? Right? Because it only spurted into popularity in the 1970s because of the release of the Illuminatus trilogy. Right? And today it's mostly online, right? Not in person. So is our government today corrupt towards discordianism? right? You know, in one circle we've got the Illuminati, and it's going all around people. Yeah. We take the pledge, the eternal oath, when we take freely, take this eternal pledge into this brotherhood, we also dedicating our life and all the days on this planet to the protection and advancement of the human species, right? And so we're dealing with people in the Illuminati and in the government. Well, we're not really dealing with people, depending on what region or what parts of the globe you're in. Some governments mostly based on farming. When we go into uh, the world and we get national governments, federal governments, state governments, city governments, and then we've got in the bureaucracy, smaller units that are government systems over neighborhoods, neighborhood watch programs, for example, right? So, yeah, all in a day, we have to make sense of this and relevancy in philosophy of this to us in the lodge, right? This is a way around directly discussing politics in the large religion. Now, I understand the House of Aries that, and on others that we might really be talking about religion because Discordianism is a religion, right? Freemasonry is not a religion. However, the Illuminati is designated as a branch of Freemasonry, and so in the capacity of religion, we do have some touch, as sure as we believe in the great architect of the universe. But we don't, for a specific reason, traditionally we do not make, enlightenment on subjects that are religious, pro-religious, or pro-political. But these are ways here we can evade those direct perspectives and still spread Masonic light, as every Mason is charged to do, which means we've got to figure out a way to include a political aspect or perspective as well as a religious one without having to be so verbatim or so by the book doing it. We've got to be individual enlightened Masons and enlightened Mason in order to do it. We have got to be practicing the craft in order to do it. We have got to be continuously practicing the ritual in order to do that, so that we're not locked or caught outside of politics and religion, which exist very well on the other side of the Judaism old gate. In a very literal, verbatim way, we know this. Right? We know this. Hedonism is the pursuit of pleasure. It's sensual self-indulgence. And one example of it, or demonstration of hedonism, which I haven't done, is doing drugs and a careless lifestyle of sex. Ways that hedonism is shown, right? Or expressed, rather. And there are 6 types of hedonism. For whatever or what's all, the Neurosomatic Circuit concerns itself with. The first one is folk hedonism. The second one is the value hedonism and the prudential hedonism. The third one is motivational hedonism. The fourth one is normative hedonism. Right? The fifth one, hedonistic egoism. And then the sixth one is hedonistic utilitarianism. 6 types of hedonism. Right? Eroticism is the sexual or erotic quality or character of something, arousing or satisfying sexual desire. Right? Now, this all has to do with consciousness, and it relates to us in the house of Aries, hell Aries, because we as humans need to evolve, right? We need to learn, especially in this fraternity. You know, the ideal members are elite, influencers, business owners, company executives, entertainers, artists, entrepreneurs, people who have direction towards success, beliefs, and are rooted, frankly, in my opinion, in the ideals of scholarship for the purpose of prosperity and progress and abundance and success. So we will need to understand the fifth circuit, also the first and the second and the third and the fourth. Also, for that matter, the sixth and the seventh and the eighth. Once we understand Leary's model a lot more in regard of how it is in such a divisional a structure, we will appreciate deciding to learn more about the 8 circuits of consciousness, perhaps even more than before, because it divides all the way down until we're talking each of us to ourselves as the enlightened Mason, for the purpose of finding out how to better ourselves, as we know we're good men made better, right? And you know, I'm not sure. I've been contemplating over the first, second, third, fourth lecture and this one as well, to this point, about disclosing the rapport ethics in the house, where, because in some bodies I have affiliation or membership in, or pendant bodies, and Freemasonry, various other jurisdictions. We've come to learn, or maybe not, well, sure, in the Masonic Philosophical Society, which I'm a member of, I learned, but we all are to learn that the term brother, as we refer to each other as brother in Freemasonry, applies to male or female, right? At a time when females were allowed to join Freemasonry, you know, the custom of referring to a female as a sister was not as desired by the females that were interested in Freemasonry at the time. So they, became advocates, if you will, for the term brother to remain constant, as it had already been before they were allowed to join Freemasonry. So that today we can always say brother, even if that brother's name is feminine, or you're talking to a female. So when I say brotherhood or brother, I also say sisters, because not every order is that way, where they have female brethren. Rather, they have sisters in a chapter, which is what I've been introduced to first and the most. In the earlier days of my membership as a Freemason in the fraternity, you know, we've evolved consciousness. This is why it's important, so we can understand how we are going about our order. And that's not implying that there's something bad going on. This is all directed towards the positive. We've got to remember what our image originally looks like in society. You know, through the ancient Arabic order of the Nobles of the Mystic Shrine, on to other appended bodies that we have that are dedicated in charitable ways to children, for the most part, talked about Shriners. I'm a noble of the Hella Shrine Temple, and the Children's Hospitals, St. Jude's, etc. We've got to remain there and not where others are trying to put us. Post coronavirus, maybe, but definitely it's been since I can remember to be satanic, dark, evil, wicked, or devil worshippers. We've got to get out of entertaining those opinions and stick to what our image really is based on our works. And so that makes this the end of lecture 5 on the neurosomatic circuit solemnly and masonically come to its recess until we convene again in philosophy over the framework of Masonic principles, right? With the 6th lecture, which is about the 6th circuit of consciousness. With that being said, brethren, sisters, we meet upon the level of equality, we act by the plumb of uprightness, and we part upon the square of virtues. Hail Aries, to the house of Aries, to the brotherhood. I'm Grandmaster Williams, 5th degree Episcopos, and I will see you later, as above, so below.